Alrighty, greetings and salutations, everyone. Welcome to our live stream for Thursday of week 3 of the 2025 fantasy football season. For those of you who are joining us, I'm sure we have all just witnessed the game between the Buffalo Bills taking on the Miami Dolphins as Tua turned the ball over, absolutely sealed their fate in the fourth quarter. Now, again, luckily for many of us, this was a competitive game. Over the course of this entire week, the primary concern was, can we still find value in Tyreek Hill, in Jalen Waddle? Is Jalen Waddle going to be healthy? And is there going to be enough fantasy value just from the semblance of whatever the heck Miami throws out there on a short week? Luckily, there was. In regards to the other side, I expected the Buffalo Bills to find themselves far more success in comparison to where they were. Obviously, great that Josh Allen threw for 3 passing touchdowns. Luckily, for those of us who have James Cook, he was able to find the end zone. Of course, we have Ollie Gordon, the potential of his value continuing to go up now that we've gotten a little bit more usage for him and, of course, goal line opportunity. But that'll, of course, be a conversation once we get to the waiver wire discussion for week 4. Nonetheless, over the course of the next hour plus, we're talking all things fantasy football related. So, if you guys have any questions, please go ahead and include them within the live stream chat and or send in via super chat if you need priority. Again, whether you do send in a question via the live chat and or super chat, make sure you include your scoring format. So whether that is half PPR, full PPR, standard, tight end premium, super flex, any sort of context that you provide will help out. Hope you guys are doing well. Let's get into it, shall we? All right, let's go ahead and let's begin with our number 1. We had Headshop who sends in a question. Says, Jacoby for BTJ. If you could trade Jacoby Myers and you can acquire Brian Thomas Jr. in exchange, you should do it immediately. You should give them a firm handshake, a kiss on the forehead, and get out of there as quickly as you can before they change their mind. Thank you, Headshop. Ray C sends in a question. Says, Ford, PPR, Pacheco, Henderson, or Bashaw Tootin? Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to check my rankings as to how I currently have it constructed as of just today. In regards to Pacheco, Ford, Henderson, and Bashaw Tootin, full PPR, legitimately, I have Henderson ranked the highest. I would go Henderson 1, it would go Pacheco 2, it would go Tootin 3, and Ford 4. That's the way that I currently have it constructed. Do I love the idea? No, but you are basically playing with the riskiest 4 running back combo I could have possibly found. And yeah, at this point, I'm just going to roll with Hendo. Thank you. Taylor sends in a question. Thank you, Taylor. I appreciate it, my man. Taylor says, Pearsall or Hampton in my flex? It depends on scoring format, Taylor. Let me just go ahead. Let me see if you had mentioned that in the live chat by any chance. And then at that point, I can go ahead and give you a direct answer. I don't see anything from you in the chat, Taylor, but I'll just go ahead and I'll just assume. Actually, I won't even assume. I'll just give you the answer to both. So just give me a second and let me check this out. Okay, so as of right now, where do I have Hampton in a full PPR? Okay, I have Hampton there, to which he's ahead of Pearsall. So then that means in both formats, whether it's half or full PPR, I will take Omarion Hampton. In the event in which Brock Purdy does play this week, which again, I guess by tomorrow we'll know. In the event in which he does play tomorrow, then at that point I would flip it in a full PPR, to which I am playing Pearsall over him. Thank you. I see Taylor saying yes, PPR. Okay, cool. So yeah, in that circumstance, I will take Pearsall over him only if Purdy plays. Otherwise, give me Omarion Hampton this week. Taking on Denver. That's fine by me. Thank you. Again, just really quickly, for those of you who have Omarion Hampton, Ashton Genty, JCM, Hendo, for the production that you have received thus far, even RJ Harvey, okay? From the production you have received thus far, based on your draft investment, you may be in shambles. And I can empathize with that overall, kind of feeling. Primarily because I myself am dealing with a lot of scenarios in which I have selected those players at a high draft capital. But I would like the contributions in the game today and what we saw out of Ollie Gordon to represent the potential of our future. Okay, even though a rookie running back doesn't get much tread and much success in weeks 1 and 2, it doesn't mean that they're doomed for the remainder of the season, and it doesn't mean that your team is cooked. I know that many of us live in a what have you done for me lately kind of situation, to which you are looking for immediate kind of success. But in a lot of these scenarios, especially with rookies, we have to give it some time. So hopefully, you're patient, because that's all you need. Once the patience finally kind of gets to the point where these running backs start to really get the proper opportunity share that they deserve, they'll take over the league. All right, let's see here. We continue on with the question that comes in from Mo Money. Mo, thank you very much. Says, send JSN, Rome Odunze, Connor for JJ, Kyron, and Wanda Robinson in a full PPR 2-flex format. I'm going to be totally honest with you. I think I'd rather keep what you currently have on roster. I think I would rather just keep what you have. Now, if you would like to make the trade, again, I could justify it, but personally, I'd rather keep what you have. Thank you. Juan Vaca Ramirez sends in a question. Says, traded Drake May for Worthy. Okay, understood. Says, I have Murray. Did I mess up? No, I don't think you did. I think Drake May, in terms of rest of season value, you could just play matchups with him and Kyler Murray. Now, in terms of Worthy, we got to remember that, of course, you got to remember that Xavier Worthy is dealing with a shoulder injury. In the event in which he goes down hard, re-aggravates that injury, and maybe requires surgery, then we may be in a little bit of a tough situation there. So as of right now, I'm going to probably lean towards the idea that it's not an objective mistake, assuming Drake May is, your starter rest of the season. And if Worthy stays healthy, then yeah, it's going to probably be a mistake. But for right now, I'm just trying to comfort you in the decision you made. Ultimately, I would have kept Worthy if I had the opportunity to, because I think Murray is just a solid start. You got to remember that the first 2 weeks of the season for the Cardinals, they've taken on some terrible teams. They took on the Carolina Panthers and the Saints, right? Those are hopeless franchises as of thus far this season. Once these games start to get a little bit more competitive and Kyler has to play up until the very last minute throwing the ball, it'll increase his overall potential for upside. Thank you, DeAndre. I appreciate that, my man. All right, we move on to a question that comes in from Harold. Thank you, Harold. I appreciate it. It says, I'm 2-0. Do I trade Marvin Harrison and Scatterbo for Ridley, Henderson, and Dobbins? Okay. I could justify making this move if you are in need of that running back depth, because I truly see it as such. Marvin Harrison is a better fantasy asset than Ridley rest of season. That's how I believe it to be the case. Even if it ends up being close, I believe that Marvin Harrison will still be the more valuable between the two. But if you're in need of running back depth, I think being able to get Henderson and Dobbins, where Dobbins is an immediate start right now, and Henderson could eventually get himself an even greater workload share, and Ridley will improve in due time, just like he did last season, I'm okay with that trade if you're going to get that running back depth that you definitely are in need of and that you desire at this moment. Thank you. Carlo sends in a question. Thank you, Carlo. Says, trade Odunze for Kyron. Interesting deal. Let's see what your team looks like here. It says, I have Gibbs, Hampton, RJ Harvey, Tootin. My wide receivers consisting of Puka Nacua, Drake London, Rome Odunze, Egbuka, DJ Moore, Matthew Golden, and Juwan Jennings. Okay, if I was in your position, I'm trying to move Egbuka first before I move Odunze in a full PPR. That would be my primary suggestion. Now, as for the trade as a whole, I don't mind it. I would like to, look, here's the issue that I have, right? I look at Kyron Williams in a full PPR. I see a running back that doesn't get much receiving workload, and I see a running back that is potentially, going to be trending towards a direction in which we may see more Blake Corum. Despite the fact that we don't want that to be the case, it may in fact take place. So if we're trending in that direction, do we want to be buying on Kyron right now with Odunze coming off of that big of the week? I would like to hope that you should be able to get somebody better than a Kyron Williams in exchange there. In the event in which you can't, I'm okay keeping what you have. I look at your team. I'd rather push a trade in which I'm getting rid of Egbuka than Odunze at this point. Thank you, Carlo. Luke C sends in a question. Says, would you take Nico Collins / Woody Marks for Ja'Cory, Myers, and Connor? Would I take those two for those three? I think it's purely dependent on what your roster looks like. In a bubble, like in a vacuum where there's no context to rosters, I would rather honestly at this point, rest of season, have probably the Ja'Cory and Connor side, because I know that I'm probably going to get, if I have Ja'Cory and Connor who could potentially be starters, and then Myers can serve as my wide receiver 3 or flex in a PPR format, like I'm set there. In comparison to just getting Nico, who's my singular starter, and Woody Marks is pretty much a lottery ticket that may not be, anything this season. So I'd rather have the depth side, unless you're playing in a thin league. If you're playing in a league where it's like 8 teams and everybody's got an all-star roster and you can afford to get rid of all these bench players, then sure, it's fine. Flashy sends in a question. Says, Breece Hall for Mike Evans in a full PPR. I have Hall. Yeah, I'm okay with that trade. I don't have an issue with it at all. Again, I had, prior to the season beginning, Mike Evans ranked as a top 15 wide receiver in a full PPR scoring format. I had him around, I think, 15 or 16. I honestly don't even remember. Somebody can cross-reference that with one of my rankings videos in August. But Mike Evans, I still think, has a lot of upside for the remainder of the season. He still gets himself a lot of looks. The way that this offense is trending, again, with their offensive line going down with a lot of injuries, we may be in a position to where they're throwing the ball a little bit more in comparison to, trying to hand it off, as they have 3 significant injuries up front. So yeah, I'm okay with Mike Evans in this circumstance, assuming, again, you need the wide receiver help going forward. And again, it's a buy low prospect. All right, let's hear. Jag sends in a question. Jag, thank you very much. Let me go ahead and travel there so I can find your question here, Jag. All right, he says the following. Says, what's up, bro? How's it going? Hey, listen, guys. For those of you joining us on this wonderful Thursday night, I hope you had a wonderful experience in regards to this very interesting Thursday night game. Thus far this season, we have seen Thursday night games, effectively lead to a lot of tight end touchdowns. I mean, this week, thus far, of course, if it wasn't for Dalton Kincaid dropping that second touchdown, there were a lot of tight end touchdowns in general within this game. And then the week before, of course, we saw Tucker Kraft and Zach Ertz both play well. And then the week before that, Dallas Goedert. And then if it wasn't for the drop from Jake Ferguson, they played well. So technically speaking, Thursday Night Football might be the time to start up your tight ends. Just putting it out there. There's causation doesn't mean correlation. Like, I understand, but I'm just putting it out there. Anyway, let's go. Let's see what we have here. Jag says, what's up, bro? Would you trade Breece Hall and Zay Flowers for Omarion Hampton and Rome Odunze? I would. I absolutely would. I'm okay with that. I have no issue with it. I'm excited about the potential there. Again, when I look at this current Bears iteration of the offense, if DJ Moore doesn't wake up sooner rather than later, and this offense continues to trend in the direction that they are, they will probably trade him by midseason. And in the event in which they do so, Rome Odunze only goes up in value. Omarion Hampton is at his floor of production thus far, and I think he is only going to get better in due time. So yeah, I would be willing to make that kind of a move. I think there is a very balanced set to the trade as a whole, but I do prefer the Hampton side. Thank you. Tato Play sends in a question. Thanks, Tato. I appreciate it. It says, which side do you take in this trade? BTJ, Breece Hall, or Kamara and Evans? That's a very interesting trade. I think, okay, so let's say, for example, you're playing in a full PPR scoring format. Do I want to take the Breece Hall side there? Let me look at the upcoming schedule for the Jets real quick. All right, looking at this Jets schedule, we have the Dolphins, Cowboys, Broncos, Panthers, Bengals, Browns, Patriots. Yeah, I'm okay with that. I'll take the BTJ side. Thank you. Keloid sends in a question. Says, I traded Johnston and Chubb for Swift. Okay, interesting trade. Says, I only had Kyron Williams, Chuba, and Hendy. Yeah, I mean, in terms of trying to get yourself some value there, I think it's okay. I don't love the idea of this trade in particular, but the reason why I specifically mentioned that is because I don't know what the deal with Swift is going to be by the time we get 8 weeks from now. I don't know if this is going to be a little bit of a rotation situation where we get Kyle Monangai getting a lot more workload utilization within the offense. So in the short term, I think it's fine. If you can find yourself, with Kyron Williams and Chuba Hubbard getting the job done, and then Swift and Hendy being that kind of flexible option for you, then that works. And I don't have an issue with it as you're selling high on Johnston. And of course, same thing with Chubb in this situation, as Chubb is not really the best player. And of course, in due time will eventually kind of fall to the wayside. Flotation says 30 ball from Allen, at least full PPR X. Let's go ahead and see this. I mean, I think it depends on what kind of a scoring format you're playing in which you had, a potential 30 bomb. From Josh Allen here. Are you playing in a 6-point per passing touchdown league? Let's see. Yeah, I don't know what you're exactly playing in. Maybe, you're getting points per first down. That's why. Okay, I was going to say. All right, let's see what your question was. It says, I have 2 questions. Okay, let's see here, Flotation. It says, I'm a little bit worried, but as it stands now, Henry or Andrews. As of right now, I'd go with Henry. And Renfro or Wicks. I'd rather play Renfro. Know you talked before, but don't know. Yeah, trade ideas, Dobbins and Chuba for Gibbs. Interesting. Kyron and Hampton for Gibbs. Swift and Jacobs for Gibbs. Interesting. Okay, so of those potential options in which you could explore, I'd like the third one. I like the idea of getting... You know what? Yeah, I would like the Jacobs trade. If you were going to theoretically make it, that's the one that I prefer to the group. Thank you. Rockout sends in a question. Says, I got a trade offer for my JSN for their Justin Jefferson, straight up, but concerned about Minnesota's quarterback situation, and Jason's playing better right now. Yeah. So, history of fantasy football would suggest that Justin Jefferson is going to be just fine. Okay, we know what kind of a talent he is, regardless of who plays at quarterback. I would tell you to make the trade. In the event in which you're like, Andrew, I've got a little bit of like JSN's my new favorite wide receiver. Okay, so be it. But if I was in your position, I would be clicking the accept button and hoping nobody vetoes that. James Malfatti sends in a question. Thank you, James. Says, hey, brother, I'm in a half PPR. I have Genty and Kamara, Evans, Neighbors, and T-Mac as my flex. My bench is Swift, Bill, Worthy. Stay with starters. I mean, going into this week, seeing as to what you have in a half PPR format, if Worthy ends up playing, I think I might end up rolling him ahead of T-Mac, depending on one factor. If Tedero McMillan is going, because he's going up against the Falcons, if the Falcons' number one cornerback, AJ Terrell, is not active this week, I'm going to play T-Mac there. In the event in which he is active, at that point, I will pivot to most likely playing Worthy in that flex position. I think that is pretty much the determining factor as to how we go about this. Let me see where I have Swift in a half PPR, and then I'll continue with this discussion. Okay, sits there. Okay. So for now, let's wait until we get an identified kind of piece there. Otherwise, honestly, I don't even mind Swift in this circumstance, considering they're playing against Dallas, and Dallas can't stop a nosebleed on the ground either. Yeah. So I think this is very much so dependent on what the injury news comes out tomorrow. If Worthy's active, I probably play him. Otherwise, I just roll with T-Mac there. Thanks. Appreciate it, James. Denon sends in a question. Says, who would I start in my flex between Ladd, Jalen Warren, Pearsall, Ridley, or Pittman? Okay, so of those available, I think there's multiple kind of factors we have to take into account. If, in fact, we do have a fully healthy Tyler Warren, at that point, between the bunch, it's either Ladd McConkey or Jalen Warren at that point. If we're playing in a full PPR, I probably go with Ladd. If it's a half PPR, go with Jalen Warren at that point. Says, should I be worried about Gordon? I don't have him, and he's not on waivers. Should you be worried about Gordon? Ollie Gordon? I'm confused as to why you would be worried about him when you have Ladd, Warren, Pearsall, Ridley, and Pittman. So I'm not sure what Gordon has to do with this group, but maybe we can get more context on that if you can reply to your own super chat. Thank you. Cream Z sends in a question. Thanks, Cream. Appreciate it. Says, would you trade Igbuka and JCM for Genty in a 12-team, full PPR, 2 wide receiver, 2 running back, 1 flex format? In a vacuum, I would. In the event in which you are in a league in which maybe you don't have the depth to be able to afford a trade like this, I would say, okay, maybe we just don't go about it. Because if these are 2 starters on your team and you don't have enough bench depth to be able to kind of accommodate for losing 2 pieces as such, then I don't make the move. Otherwise, I would. Fernando sends in a question. Says, PPR, I lost Burrow. Start Caleb Williams or Indiana Jones? I would rather play Caleb Williams this week. Again, earlier today, I did post my top 16 quarterback and tight end rankings on the channel. So if you guys are interested in regards to my thoughts on those players going into this week, I do have Caleb Williams relatively high ranked this week against the Dallas Cowboys at home. Kirk B sends in a question. Says, sell Chuba Hubbard with offensive line injuries, running back targets to trade for. If you're going to... Okay, here's the thing. If you are going to trade Chuba Hubbard, you have to get a running back that is very... I mean, like, how do I explain this? You can't sell low on him. I don't care that his offensive line is hurt. You cannot give your league mates the indication in which you value him low. You have to try to sell him for top-tier talent because that is how he is produced. Averaging 18 points in a full PPR. So, as of right now, I am not selling him at all low. If somebody wants to give me Genty, I'll take it. But outside of that, like, in this kind of a circumstance, Kenneth Walker's fine by me. Kyron's fine by me. Chase Brown is fine by me. Yeah. We have to... Bucky Irving's fine with me. We got to get back a lot of value because he's still going to be really good. I understand that, again, losing Robert Hunt, the right guard, is definitely something that is a negative impact for his potential future success. But I still think that Chuba Hubbard is way too talented for that one singular offensive lineman to matter to the point to where he's not going to completely disappear because of it. That's basically what I'm trying to convey. But those would be the options in which I go after, Kirk. Thank you. No Love Matt sends in a question. It says, pick 3 in a full PPR. We have T. Higgins, we have Connor, we have Pollard, we have Dobbins, Warren, Ridley, Chubb, and Ertz. Of those available options in a full PPR format, I'd legitimately feel most comfortable starting 3 running backs, I think. I think if it was my team, I end up playing Connor, Pollard, and Warren. Thank you. Nick sends in a question. Says Jordan Mason and Pearsall for Chase Brown. I don't have an issue with that. That sounds good to me. Says Pearsall is my wide receiver 3 in a 3 wide receiver league. If I make this trade, I start Shaheed and Downs in that spot. Never mind. I retract my comment. You know, the issue is if you have to start Shaheed and Downs every single week rest of the season, there's just so much volatility within those two to where they have to contribute weekly. No, I would rather have the depth of Pearsall and Mason and hope that Mason can not only take over the job, but remain as the clear and away RB1 of the team. And once Aaron Jones returns, he is still a secondary option in comparison who only touches the ball 8 times a game max. Taylor sent in a follow-up question. Thank you, Taylor. I appreciate it, my man. Says in a half PPR flex 2 between Montgomery, DJ Moore, Egbuka, Judkins, and Hunter. Okay, Hunter cannot play for us right now. So Egbuka has not practiced either Wednesday or Thursday. Not a positive sign for him. So of the available options you have, I'm leaning towards Montgomery and Moore. In the event in which Egbuka gets a full practice by tomorrow, at that point, I'd be comfortable going Montgomery and Egbuka. Otherwise, again, Montgomery and Moore are my suggestions this week. Thank you. Nick LaRosa sends in a question. Says, drop Henderson for Scadaboo. I would, again, this is what I'm going to say. I wouldn't. No, I wouldn't. Unless Scadaboo's getting picked up to immediately be put into your starting lineup, I wouldn't do it. I would rather wait on Henderson and my investment. I will be patient with it. I'll have diamond hands and I'll let it roll. Again, the way that I see it, in due time, eventually, he will be of value. As to how long that's going to take, that's what I'm willing to risk. But again, I think a lot of what this question revolves around is Scadaboo immediately becoming a starter for you? If you're picking him up and he's immediately becoming a contributing option, then yeah, at that point, you have to make the move because you need to win now. So it's very much so dependent on that kind of a situation. Flotation that sent in a follow-up says Etienne, Mason, Pacheco for Gibbs. Wow. I don't like, oh man. Okay, look, in terms of your team, because you were in such need of running back depth, I just would like to get 2 solidified options, right, for Gibbs. And the options that you were mentioning earlier on Twitter in regards to like Jacobs and Swift, Hampton and Kyron, and now, of course, Mason, Etienne, Pacheco. The issue with Mason is that I don't have a guarantee that once Aaron Jones comes back, he's not going to diminish Mason's role to the point to where it is a risky move. Additionally, I have to worry about Etienne with Bayshall too. And I'm still going to legitimately worry there. Even though how well Etienne has produced thus far, I'm still concerned. So I'm still looking for an alternative option. If you would like this trade, you can go for it, but I'm looking for alternative options. Andrew Pacina sends in a question. Says, trade Chase Brown for Breece. No, I'd rather have Chase Brown rest of the season. Thank you. MTD sends in now, don't get me wrong, okay? Listen, I've said it over the course of the last 4 consecutive live streams here that I've conducted on the channel. The players that I'm trying to buy low on right now are Marion Hampton, Ashton Genty, Ja'Cory Krosky-Merritt, Breece Hall, at running back. I have also said I'd like to buy low on Chase Brown if the fantasy manager is panicking. This being all mentioned, you do have Chase Brown. I do prefer him over Breece Hall. It's not that Breece Hall is a not worthwhile investment. He is, but in your case, I'd rather just have Chase Brown. Maybe if you go about it with a different option, we could potentially achieve that. Thank you. MTD sends in a question. Says, I'm about Chase Brown and that offensive line. Should I try to move him for a guy like Kamara, Dobbins, Mason, etc.? No, I wouldn't. Again, I understand that the offensive line has not played well thus far, but this is very much so reminiscent of what we experienced in 2023, in the time in which, of course, Burrow went down, Jake Browning took over, and the run game of the Cincinnati Bengals evolved. And they continue to commit to the run game in which they are running the ball 21 times per game, targeting the running backs nearly 6 times per game. And I think that kind of an opportunity share is just down the pike for someone like Chase Brown, who, again, within the upcoming matchups, everything will open up. Other running backs are Walker, Charbonnet, Henderson, Scadaboo, etc. Yeah, listen, if you're going to be able to move Chase Brown, let's say you brought in Kamara and Mason. At that point, I instantly accept it. But if you're not getting like a multiplayer deal and it's just one for ones, I'm not interested. If you're getting multiplayers, I'm okay with it. Luke C says, check the chat, please. Okay, thank you, Luke. I appreciate that, my man. Let me go ahead. I'm going to write your name down. I'm going to assume that the chat probably doesn't have your message in it, so if you can, retype it in right now. Thanks, man. Andrew Mitchell sends in a question. Says, Godwin worth a pickup in a non-PPR league? Drop Golden to do it. Okay, look, here's the thing. If you don't have an IR spot available for Chris Godwin, then no, he's not, he's not worth the technical pickup at the moment. I'd rather have Golden on roster, see how he performs this week, and then at that point make the adjustment if needed by weeks 4 waiver wire kind of situation. The fact that he's available in your league speaks to the fact that other people in your league don't find him to be of value, so you are benefiting from the lack of kind of fervor for Godwin. I would hold Golden. Let's see how he performs. If he puts up another dud, then we can make the swap in week 4. Nathan Gutierrez, if you can do me a favor as well, please type in your question in the live chat. I see you sent in a super. It's greatly appreciated. Just type your question in the chat. Thanks. Big Rod says, Bills wide receivers are a lottery. Yeah. Do I drop Coleman trade Shakir? You can trade Shakir, but again, you got to remember, Shakir last season was basically this all season long. If it wasn't for Shakir getting injured and missing a little bit of time at the end of the season, he was going to finish as a top 30 wide receiver in a full PPR. So this isn't uncommon for Shakir. So ultimately, if you want to move on from Coleman, that's fine. I think he's still someone that I'm not dropping. I'm leaving on my bench. Edgar sends a question. Thank you, Edgar. Says, in a PPR dynasty trade, Judkins for Henderson. Also, Judy or Henderson in the flex. Okay, great question. The thing is, I don't think I want any pieces of the Browns. So in the case of, the potential future, I'd rather have Hendo. Additionally, in regards to this week, at that point, I'd rather just play Judy in a full PPR. Thank you. H. Jockish sends in a question. Says, start 2. Ted McMillan, Swift, Jordan Mason, Egbuka, PPR. In a full PPR, as of right now, Jordan Mason, Ted McMillan. That's the direction I'm leaning in. That's probably where we'll go about it. Thank you. Mikey sends in a question. Says, what's up, brother? Okay, what should I do with my tight end situation? Okay, Mikey, let me go ahead. I'm going to write your name down as well. I'm going to go into the live chat. Do me a favor and share with me the context to your tight end conversation or situation so we can help you out to the best of our ability. Thank you. All right, until then, let me see what Luke C said in the live chat, and we can go and help him out. Luke, I don't see you in the chat. Where you at, my man? Okay, until Luke types in said question, we're going to go on to Nathan, see what he ended up saying. Nathan Gutierrez says, hey, Andrew. Been here for 5+ years. My quarterbacks are Mahomes, Fields. Okay, first and foremost, Nathan, 5+ years, brother. Thank you. I appreciate that. That is greatly appreciated. We are close to achieving our goal of 100,000 subscribers, but if you've been here for the last 5 years, you've seen us as low as, 15K subs, maybe less than 10K. I don't know. Appreciate the support long term. All right, let's see here. What do we have here? It says Mahomes, Fields. Running backs are Henry, Hubbard. And then we have London, Myers, Coleman, Hunter, Tillman, Rice, Hawkinson, Fannin, 1-1, need a trade for start, ? Okay. So here's my primary question, Nathan. The last running back that you mentioned, you put Henry, Hubbard, and then you put Turn. Who the heck is Turn? That's what I would like to know before I continue on, because I don't know what the heck that means. Once you give me the context to that, that'd be greatly appreciated. I don't know what the heck Turn is. I was thinking the only running back that I can think of off the top of my head, last name's like Turner, will be Michael Turner, and he hasn't played for the Falcons in more than a decade, right? So that's the only name that I could theoretically kind of construct there. Let me know. Until then, we'll go ahead and answer Luke C's question. It says, in my last question, I was asking if I should accept Nico/Marks for PPR for Jacoby Myers and James Conner. Oh, that was Jacoby Myers. I thought it was Ja'Cory Krosky, Merritt Myers, and James Conner. I thought you were getting a 3. No. Okay. So here's the thing. If you're not getting the 3-player side, then I don't want it as much. Now, in the event in which you can get Olave in this circumstance, then I'll take it, Luke. Thank you. Yeah, we don't want Woody Marks. We want anything that is actually going to be a contributing factor going forward here, man. Thank you. All right. Okay, where are we at here? In terms of... Who the heck is Turn? Tootin, thank you. All right, look, here's the straightforward kind of approach to which I would go about it. You have no quarterback problems. You don't have any running back problems. You don't really have any wide receiver problems. The only thing that I can see is potentially trying to improve this team by shipping away some options. If I was in your position, I legitimately feel like I can try to go buy low. I'm going to try to... Okay, so this is the way it works. Because you are not in a position to go buying low on BTJs and Mike Evans and Nico Collins of the world or AJ Browns, even though I would try to, try to set yourself up to do that potentially with Jacoby Myers. If you can't accomplish it, I am then at that point going after players like DK Metcalf or Terry McLaurin. Those are the guys that I would want for this team. Because if you're playing in a full PPR and you need that flex option or that third wide receiver, I think that would be pretty helpful for you going forward. As to who you start this week, obviously it's Mahomes, Henry, Hubbard. You're playing London Myers. As for your flex this week, I'm playing Fannin over Hawkinson. And your flex, as of these available technical options, man, I don't love any of it. I probably end up playing Cedric Tillman, though. Thank you. All right, continuing on here. We had a question from, I think the last one was Mikey, right? Mikey, where are you at? Let's see here. All right, Mikey, let's see here. It says I'm in a PPR. Baker, CMC, Kamara, Javonte, Chubb, Algier, Nico, Evans, Jacoby, Pearsall, Addison, Jonnu, Ingram. All right, so we need a new tight end. So let's figure out this tight end situation here, shall we? So in regards to the potential of improving this tight end kind of conundrum that you are within, I'm going to try to use either Jacoby Myers or potentially Nick Chubb, Algier, Javonte to accomplish this. I would like to, in your case, keep Javonte based on how well he's played alongside of CMC, Kamara, Javonte. Now, in the event in which you are, the only options are like one of the top tier pieces, maybe you just go ship Kamara for McBride. In the event in which that is not a possibility, then at that point, I'm trying to ship like Jacoby Myers to just try to go buy. If Tucker Kraft wasn't hurt today, I'd say go in that direction. I'd say Tyler Warren, those kind of players. In the event in which you cannot accomplish any of that, then at this point, you need a 2-for-2 trade. You need to try to take one of your running backs and one of your tight ends and go trade for a lesser running back and a better tight end. So like you take a Javonte and a Jonnu and you trade it for a Kelsey and a Jawan. Not a Jawan, sorry, what am I saying? You need a running back. You get what I'm saying. That's how you go about it. It's probably a 2-for-1 kind of future for you based on your current situation. Because 1-for-1s are going to be real difficult in this league, especially if everybody's hurting for tight end. Thank you. Okay, let's continue on here really quickly. My YouTube chat just crashed, so I'm going to go ahead and we're going to figure this out in just a moment. Can this chat load? Can you load chat? Oh my God. All right. 1 second, guys. All right, really quickly. For those of you who are, my YouTube chat just broke again. Wow, it is on a complete and utter destructive tear. Okay, for those of you joining us this wonderful Thursday night, I hope you guys are doing well. I appreciate y'all. For some reason, every time I try to bring my chat onto my third monitor here, it for some reason does not want to help me out. All right. But yeah, Mikey, you should probably look to try to 2-for-1. Try to go after Tucker Kraft, Tyler Warren if you can. If you can't, maybe even try to go buy low on Kittle right now, because I think that's probably a good idea considering the team that has Kittle might already have a little bit of tight end depth and may be willing to ship him off based on what they have in his, in his stat as of right now. Thank you. Okay, we continue on with the question that comes in from all right, Big Rod says, okay, we took care of that. We're good to go. We're good to go. Spencer James, thank you, Spencer, says, my team is Dak Prescott, Justin Herbert, Drake May, Bucky Irving, Connor, Benson, Tyler Warren, CD, Higgins, T-Mac, Godwin, Downs, Quentin Johnston. I got offered A.J. Brown and A.J. Brown for Herbert, Higgins, and Quentin Johnston, except no. I mean, here's the thing. Like, at that point, you're just being taken out to the woodshed. Like, there's no reason they need to be taking 3 players off your hands. They need to give you something else. If they can give you A.J. Brown and something else in exchange, then sure. Otherwise, they're taking advantage of you. The Dollar sends in a question. Says, I got offered BTJ for Garrett Wilson and Kraft. Okay. Says, I'm in a full PPR. I have ETN, and I'm worried about capping my scoring potential. If you don't have a good enough backup tight end, then you do not make this move. Kraft is probably going to be top 5 rest of season, and I'm not even over-exaggerating this. I'm not being hyperbolic. He's legitimately going to be a top-tier guy if he can stay healthy. So I don't make this move unless I have an actual comparable replacing option that I can rely upon every week. MTD says, I'm worried about Chase Brown, also full PPR. Yeah, I was under the assumption that you were worried about Chase Brown. Again, I'm trying to convey is you shouldn't be. Trust the process. Let him build some weeks here of production. And if you want to sell him, let him kind of build a couple bigger weeks here of production. Then you can ship him off at a higher value point. Big Rod says, should I try to trade my Harvey for JCM? Absolutely. If you have an opportunity to do so, do that for sure. Denon says, I have Achane and not Gordon. Worried about the goal line touches. Yeah, listen, the Miami Dolphins, luckily for you, Denon, are not going to get to the goal line very often this season, as they are not a good offense. So I don't think you're going to have to worry about that much. You know, it's not going to be a very consistent part of the game. So I wouldn't worry too much about it in the long term. Sean K sends in a question, says, I need running back depth. I have Denver, I have Kansas City. Okay. Using Kansas City's defense this week, which I would suggest, that's solid. Should I drop Denver's defense and pick up Benson and stream defenses moving on? Yeah, listen, I don't want Denver's defense until I get to like week 6. Because again, their schedule upcoming here until we get to the Jets game is not really interesting, right? It's like once they get to the Jets game, they play the Jets, the Giants, the Cowboys, the Texans, the Raiders. At that stretch, I'd be comfortable, but until then, I'm not really too interested in holding them on roster. So I would suggest dropping and streaming and going after other alternative options, theoretically speaking, like a Trey Benson that may be available in your league. Yeah, I think that works for you, Sean. Thank you. All right, I saw a pretty huge super chat sent in from Low K and Low. Thank you very much. That is incredibly generous of you. I'm going to go ahead and answer this real quick. Again, ridiculous. Again, you can send in whatever, but that is an abhorrent amount. Thank you. I appreciate it. Says, I have Tyler Warren as my tight end. I have Bo Nix as my quarterback. Excuse me. My league mate said that he would have taken Trey Benson for his Daniel Jones. He would take my Trey Benson for his Daniel Jones and the Falcons defense plus 15 fab. Would you do that deal? No, I wouldn't. I think Bo Nix is going to be just as valuable as Daniel Jones rest of the season. So no, I don't think you're in need to make this move. No. I think you're fine. If anything, if they want, yeah, no, I'm okay. Just keeping it as is. Here's the thing about Daniel Jones. If he continues to score rushing touchdowns, again, it wouldn't surprise me, but at the same time, the volume that he has scored thus far is an outlier. Like, you're not supposed to score 3 rushing touchdowns at that quick of a rate in 2 weeks, unless your name is Josh Allen and or Jalen Hurts. Nonetheless, he may be the new Josh Allen or Jalen Hurts, but as of right now, I feel confidently enough in Bo Nix and what I've seen from this season thus far in the week 2 performance and where he is trending based on the upcoming matchups. Obviously, this week's a little bit of a tough one. That's why I have him ranked low, but I'm not willing to make this kind of a level of trade. Thank you. Greatly appreciate it again, my man. Okay, let's see here. We're going back up to find a question from Gus the Bus, who says, in a full PPR, do I trade Hill for Mixon/Higgins? My running backs are Bijan, Hampton, Charbonnet, Robinson, Bill. Wide receiver is McMillan, Adunze, Iomanner, Jawan, and Njoku. Any tips and moves to make? Yeah, look, if I was in your position and I'm trying to move Tyreek Hill, I don't think Mixon is the player I'm going after because personally, I don't feel very much confidence in his situation. Until Mixon starts to get back into the news cycle in terms of being within practice capacity, I'm going to be a little bit concerned and honestly just a little bit cautious when I'm dealing with that kind of a trade. If I was in your position, I'm trying to take Tyreek Hill and I'm attempting to move him for players such as, like I've mentioned before, AJ Browns, BTJs, Mike Evans of the world. If you can accomplish that, I think that is beneficial because I think that he is of the value of those players, and those players haven't proved that they are more valuable to, they haven't proved that they're more valuable than him. So there may be an opportunity in which you can throw Hill on top of another player and send it for one of those options and get out from underneath what this Tua turn the ball over offense looks like. So that's really what I'm kind of pushing towards. Now, in the event in which you cannot move him, I don't want Higgins at this point with a Mixon trade because I think that just downgrades wide receiver and it leaves you at a lottery ticket running back. Like, sure, if Mixon comes back, great, but when, right? So it's a little bit sketchy there. Worst case scenario wide receiver trades in terms of options that I could go for. In the event in which I'm shipping away a Tyreek Hill, buy low on Ladd McConkey, buy low on Garrett Wilson. Those kind of options is kind of where I'm leaning towards. If somebody wants to give you a Rome Odunze, a Zay Flowers, a Deebo Samuel, I think I'd also explore those, but I doubt that's going to be the case based on how much they've performed as of late. Thank you. AJ sends in a question, says, I have Emeka Egbuka, JSN, Ladd, and Ridley. trade Odunze for Rice. No, I think I'm just going to keep Odunze at this point. I think he'll be able to contribute for me for the next 4 weeks. If by the time we get to the suspension coming off of, like, let's say 3 weeks from now, Odunze is still a top tier option, you still then at that point have the opportunity to make the trade while he's been producing for you. While additionally on top of it, maybe if he produces at a very similar, if not very diminished level, like let's say a slight diminishing of his upside. At that point, I'm not saying he's scoring 28 a week. I'm just saying, like, let's say he's an 18-point player in a full PPR. Let's just imagine the reality because of all the negative game scripts that are to come. If he's at that point, then at that point, you can trade him for a better receiver than Rice. Cowboys 955 sends in a question. Says, do I drop Joe Mixon for Isaiah Likely? Thoughts on if Mixon returns this year? Yeah, look, that's funny enough that it's almost coincidental that two Mixon conversations have come to light here in this discussion. Over the course of the last couple of weeks, we've barely spoken about Mixon, but now the conversation is beginning to stir up. Again, am I picking up Isaiah Likely to stash him on my IR in comparison to Mixon? No, because I think Mixon is a greater lottery ticket value than what Isaiah Likely could present in comparison. So for right now, I'm still preferring to hold Mixon in comparison to a Likely-esque kind of player. Jose sends in a question. Says, Keenan Allen or Kenneth Walker in my PPR? Thoughts on Olave versus Seattle? I think Olave versus Seattle is fine, but when we're beginning with the question of Keenan Allen versus Kenneth Walker, Charbonnet has not practiced at all this week. There's a chance that Charbonnet misses, and if in fact he does, Kenneth Walker's the automatic. As for Olave versus Seattle, I mean, again, wide receivers versus Seattle have been pretty strong this season, I feel like, at least. Even though, DK Metcalf didn't have the greatest week in terms of yardage in this most recent come back to the sorry, they didn't even go back to Seattle. It was in Pittsburgh and they lost. My goodness. In terms of a revenge game, he didn't have very many yards. I think it was like 20 yards total. I think Olave probably, again, is like a 5-catch, 50, 60-yard kind of player. In the event in which he scores a touchdown, great. Otherwise, he's a 10 or 11-point guy every week. James P. sends in a question. Says, drop Ingram or Goddard for Likely. I drop Ingram in a heartbeat. Thank you. Ahmed Khan sends in a question. Says, check out the chat. All right, Ahmed, if you could do me a favor, retype that in the chat when you get an opportunity. Thanks, man. Airbender sends in a question. Says, Lad, Chase, Odunze, full PPR, trade Waddle for Rice. I would immediately trade Waddle for Rice. As for, yeah, I would immediately. You can sustain with what you have on roster, considering how many studs you have at wide receiver. Thank you. Choobs McGee sends in a question. Nothing attached. Choobs, do me a favor. Type that in the live chat as well. Thank you, man. Joseph says, Andrew, we're back in a 14-team half PPR league. Dak, CD, T, Gibbs, Montgomery, Warren, Ridley. Who, if any, would you package? I don't mind owning Detroit backfield. Yeah, I think you should keep Detroit's backfield. I think it's fine with Ridley there. With Warren there. So, like, you've got stable running back contributions. I think your biggest issue is flex, right? So this is the way it works. Considering you're playing in a 14-team league, making trades become incredibly difficult. So unless you're going to make 2-for-1s, as in like you are sending away one player to get 2 in exchange to increase depth value, you are really just in a fight every single week to try to make plays on the waiver wire and hope that your investments are accurate. In the case of like Ridley, again, I'm in the business that if you can move Ridley for DK, fantastic. If you can't, that's just the reality of the situation. I'd also try to go get Terry McLaurin instead of him. Outside of this, like I would like to try to move Jaylen Warren if I can, but if you cannot, you can't go buy low on a Breece Hall, then so be it. Keep it as such and keep it moving. Thank you, Joseph. All right, let me get into the live chat really quickly before I continue on here. Let me see. Ahmed had sent in his question. It says, Daniel Jones and Nick Buka for Devontae Adams. My team is Jaden Daniels, Chase Brown, Derrick Henry, CeeDee Lamb. Yeah, I've heard enough. We make the trade immediately. Thank you. Give me Devontae Adams rest of the season. Thank you, Ahmed. Appreciate it, my man. All right, we continue on with Choobs McGee. Where are you at, my man? Choobs says, in a 12-team full PPR, do I trade Quentin Johnston for Henderson or JCM? Give me JCM. I think the absence of Austin Eckler just opens up the backfield for him to have the full reign of opportunity. He has already demonstrated thus far this season when given opportunity, he's a very efficient running back. Again, there's a reason why they traded away Brian Robinson Jr. It's because they knew that they were going to utilize a backfield that contributed, in which they were going to get contributions from Austin Eckler and JCM. Now that Eckler is gone, this is JCM's entire backfield. I know Jeremy McNichols is going to be in the mix. I know they just signed Chase Edmonds to the practice squad. Of course, Chase Edmonds used to be on the Arizona Cardinals when Clint I was going to say Clint Kubiak. No, when Cliff Kingsbury used to be there as their primary play caller and head coach. But this is JCM's backfield. That's what I'm going for. Thanks, Chubbs. Appreciate it, my man. Rogo, what's up? How's it going? Thanks, Rogo. I appreciate that. Okay, let's see here. Where are we at? Catching up slowly but surely. Appreciate your guys' patience on the matter. We continue with the question that comes in from C. Banger, who says, Andrew, in a 12-team full PPR, do I trade Ladd, Jennings, Hunter for Chase? My starters would be Chase, Puka, Franklin. I'm leaning towards no. In this circumstance, my question becomes, if you make this trade, who can you pick up off of waivers? Right? Like, what wide receivers are out there in which you can add to your roster? Because honestly, as much as I think I'm leaning towards yes. As crazy as it sounds, I think I am. But I think it just depends. Like, there's multiple kind of thought processes I have. First and foremost, how many wide receivers and how many flex can you start in this league? If you're playing in a 2 wide receiver, 1 flex format, I make this trade. In the event in which you're playing in a triple wide receiver, double flex, or something of that exchange, then maybe it's not as appealing. And then the question then becomes how many players are available off waiver wires to pick up and potentially stash going forward. Those kind of questions, those responses will kind of incite me as to how I'm going about this. Thank you. TanFam sends in a question, says, what is your thoughts on Tyreek rest season? Sell him. Immediately sell him. Listen, if you guys watched the same game that I just watched, we all witnessed Tua completely miss him and sail the ball over his head on far too many occasions. There shouldn't be this level of inaccuracy. If Tyreek Hill gets traded, sure, he can be recovering his value somewhere else. But in terms of right now, considering he's coming off of 2 solid performances where he has passed 10 points, ship him away, please and thank you. G Smooth sends in a question, says, get Genty and Hollywood traded, Connor and Myers. Yeah, look, in terms of what the potential of Hollywood is, Hollywood's value is gone. It's going to be evaporating in just a couple weeks here. So you're basically just making a 2-for-1 in this circumstance, to which you're getting Genty for Connor and Myers. To which, again, I truly do think that if Genty is the player that we know him to be, it'll be fine. Chandler Cox sends in a question. Says, rest of season, Bo Nix or Justin Herbert? As of right now, it's Justin Herbert. Baker's my backup, okay. Says, in a 10-team full PPR, rushing first down bonus. Okay, thank you for all the hard work, Andrew. Thank you, Chandler. I appreciate that. Yeah, I'll take Justin Herbert. Easy E sends in a question, says, hi, Andrew. Questions in the chat. Easy, thank you. Let me go ahead and let me put your name down here. And if you can, please type in your question once again so I can find that. Thank you, sir. All right, so we took care of Low Kane. Low, again, thank you very much. I appreciate it. Alan, sends in a question, says, questions in the chat. Thank you, Alan. If you can as well, Alan, type your question in the live chat. Then we move on to a question from Akshay, who also, Akshay, type your question in the chat. All right, Joseph says, follow up. Would you accept Nico and K9 for CeeDee Lamb? I would. Would you accept BTJ and Mason for CeeDee Lamb? No. I'd rather have the Nico and K9, theoretically speaking, if I needed that running back depth. Yeah. Rogo, what's up, my man? Says, sup, bro? I'm in a half PPR 12-team league. We've got Penix, Myers, Adunze, Gibbs, Pacheco, Fannin, McConkey, Ryland, and the Tampa Bay defense. Benches consisting of Shaheed, Austin, Benson, Fannin, Jaden Daniels, and Kittle. It says, waiver wire number 6 at Sutton. How am I doing? I don't know what the at Sutton means, but okay. How am I doing? Look, Penix being your quarterback scares the crap out of me. I think wide receiver is fine with Adunze, McConkey, and Myers. I think you're solid there. I think we are in desperate need of an RB2. How do we accomplish this? Well, here's my idea. I would say that you should try to sell George Kittle. Oh, you know why you have Penix there? Because you have Jaden Daniels on the bench this week. Okay, so never mind. It doesn't scare me as much. You need RB2. How do we accomplish this? We're trading away George Kittle. We're going to take him. We're going to try to go buy low on a Hampton, a Genty, a JCM, a Breece Hall. Anybody. Honestly, give me a James Conner. I would just like to buy a running back that I can get now for the services of Kittle, who is not going to be able to contribute to me right now. And in the event in which he even comes back, there's a possibility in which he can re-aggravate his injury. And luckily, you have Fannin to fill in for the future. That's how I go about this. Thank you. Okay, let me go back into the live chat. Let me see these questions that I was asking for y'all to send in. So let's go ahead and let's begin. Let me go back up here. Let's see if Easy sent in his question. Easy E says, I'm in a half PPR league, 10-team league. I'm currently 1-1. My team is Jalen Hurts, Puka Nacua, Cortland Sutton, Deebo Samuel, DK Metcalf, Keenan Allen, Darnell Mooney, and Godwin. Henry, Javonte, Montgomery, Laporta. Any suggestions to improve this team? I mean, ultimately, no. You have a top 5 quarterback. You have the best wide receiver in fantasy, in my opinion, in Puka Nacua. And in due time, that'll be proven based on the fact that, again, Chase unfortunately just lost Burrow, so Puka goes to the top of that conversation from, for me at least. It's either Puka or Lamb, obviously, but time will tell. Sutton and Debo are fantastic. Metcalf is fantastic. Keenan Allen's great. Listen, if you wanted to theoretically improve this team, you could take a Keenan Allen, you can take a Laporta, and you can go get whatever tight end you want. You want McBride, you can have him. You can take Keenan Allen and technically Javonte Williams and go get any running back you want, theoretically speaking. Assuming the teams in your leagues are in desperate need. You have so much depth at wide receiver that you can abuse your power with Debo or Keenan in this circumstance alongside a Javonte or Laporta to go push for players that are just going to be you never have to worry about them. They blindly start in those positions rest of season. So you can go about it. You can, potentially explore that route, and that's kind of what I'm suggesting at this point. You're not in the position where you're buying low. I mean, you could go buy low. You could send Keenan Allen for BTJ. I think that works too. If somebody in your league is going to be doing you the favor, sounds good. If someone wants to give you Nico Collins, fantastic. If someone wants to give you Genty for practically free, if they want to take Keenan Allen and Montgomery off your hands, sounds good to me. But yeah, that's the kind of moves that I'm making. I'm going to try to take advantage of teams there. Alan sent in this question. Says in a full PPR league, thoughts on DK, Pearsall, Mason, Jawan for Rice, Hampton, and Warren. Okay. Let me think about this in a vacuum really quickly. DK, Pearsall, Mason, Jawan for Rice, Hampton, Warren. Okay, I understand that. Now your team consists of the following: Baker, Etienne, Mason, Lamb, BTJ, Ladd, DK. Okay, so theoretically speaking, your team in which you would get in return here would consist of Rice, Hampton, Warren, Lamb, BTJ, Ladd, Etienne. I'm okay with the trade. Sounds good to me. I think, again, the trade as a whole requires you to wait and be patient, but you have Jamison Williams, Devontae Smith, J.K. Dobbins. You're fine, brother. Make the trade. You're good to go. It is a very much so, like a, how do I explain this? It's a blockbuster trade for sure, but I think it's one that you can certainly afford to make. Akshay, what's up, my man? All right, Akshay says, super chat. Full PPR. One start quarterback, okay. Says, Russell Wilson, Mac Jones, Trevor Lawrence, CJ Stroud, Browning, Daniel Jones, Daniel/Mariota. Okay. In the event in which you cannot start Jaden Daniels this week, you play Daniel Jones. Says, I'm also concerned about Egbuka. He might not start. I might have him. Thoughts on Sutton, Judkins rest of season? Don't worry about Sutton. It's one bad week. If anything, if people in your league, guys, if you don't have Sutton on roster and somebody else in your league has Sutton, please trade for him. He's another one of these buy low candidates in which you can get even lower. He was incredible last season. He will be incredible this season. He's the number one, and it's no question about it. Judkins, I think, is going to be a value, but again, because of the negative game scripts they're going to be implied for, it's just less value kind of associated with him in comparison to other running backs within a little bit more stable offenses. But in this circumstance, again, go get Daniel Jones and prepare if, in fact, Jaden Daniels is not available this week. Thank you. All right, continuing on. I think we took care of that. Good to go. Beautiful. Love it. All right, continuing on. Let's get back into some of these questions that were just sent in. We find the next question belonging to Taylor, who says, how do questions and rankings Discord work? I'm going to buy it. Okay, so here. I'm glad you asked, Taylor. Okay, so again, really quickly, for those of you who are interested in getting your questions answered from me directly, again, the Patreon is exactly there for that purpose. I've been conducting this Patreon for the last 5-6 years now. Again, this is a Patreon in which once you sign up with the primary tier, the 2025 Fantasy Football Champion tier, you get the following benefits. You can ask me any and all fantasy football questions. You just send me a message within the direct messaging system there, and I'll respond to you within a potential timely manner. I check the questions every day after I post my first video, and then subsequently after my live stream. Again, there's a lot of you and one of me, so even there, it's very difficult to there's a lot of questions. Let's just put it that way. Additionally, you get access to the private Discord server. You can add me on Discord and send me screenshots, so if it's easier to ask questions there in comparison to Patreon, you can access that there. And of course, we have a community server in which, again, we talk amongst ourselves and talk all things fantasy. And then, of course, every Thursday and Sunday, I post rankings in the morning or in the afternoon on Thursdays, in the morning on Sundays, including all encompassing rankings to help you set your lineup. So you don't even have to ask me on the day of. You'll know exactly where I'm going based on those rankings. Now, in the event in which you do not want to potentially go that way, and you just want to get my Sunday rankings for the remainder of the season, again, I've mentioned before, you can check out Betr. Again, when using code Andrew, making that first time deposit minimum of 10 and making that first time play minimum of $1 within a real cash play, you'll be eligible. Again, like I've mentioned, all you have to make sure is that you're eligible based on your current location, based on the map in the bottom right side of the screen, and you're good to go. Earlier today, I think, 3 of the 4 players that I suggested hit. So that was a pretty good overall day in regards to Achan, Shakir, and of course, Dalton Kincaid coming in to the clutch for us in regards to some of those plays this afternoon. Thank you. All right, continuing on. We had a question that came in from JK, who says, trade away Worthy and Devontae Smith for Evans or BTJ. Yeah, I'll take BTJ there in a heartbeat. Thank you. Wave God says questions in the chat. Wave, let me go ahead and have you retype in that question. I'm going to assume it's not available for me there because by the time you sent that in, yeah, just retype it or copy paste it. Thank you. Having Slim sends out a question. Says, I started Coleman as my wide receiver 2 over Diggs, Ridley, and Judy. Facepalm. Just picked up Wicks as well. Rank these guys rest of season. If we're talking about rest of season for the value of these prospects, number 1 should be Ridley. And that should be objectively the case. As to when that is going to be the case is in due time. Again, we have to wait for Cam Ward to have a little bit easier matchups in the future. Obviously, taking on the Denver Broncos and LA Rams, and now the Colts in the first 3 weeks is a buzzsaw of a 3-game blender. So Ridley will get better in time because so will Cam Ward effectively. Ridley's also another buy low candidate within fantasy, which you can get for, honestly, I was going to say pennies, but you can get it for peanuts. So anyway, in terms of the rest of season value, Ridley, Judy, Coleman, Diggs. Until I can see some signs of life from Diggs, I'll keep him on the back end of that. Josh sends in a question. Says, I'm giving Montgomery and A.J. Brown for Herbert and Zay Flowers. Good or not? If you're in need of a quarterback, and I mean like super need, and nobody on the waiver wire will suffice, sure. That's fine by me. All right. Introvert sends in a question. Says, would trading Egbuka and Dobbins for Rome and Scadaboo be a good move? I have Nix, Gibbs, JCM, Ladd, Egbuka, and Dobbins at my flex. Okay, so here's my thought process. As of this current second, as of right now, Egbuka and Dobbins as a duo are more valuable than Rome and Scadaboo. But I do believe that in due time, eventually Egbuka and Dobbins will have less value. So you're making a move for the future, to which I would say, yes, you make the trade for Rome. Thank you. All right, we had a couple questions from Raghav, Chubes McGee, and Nathan again. If you guys can, type in your question. Until then, I'm going to go ahead and see if I can find Wave's question. Wave, where you at, my man? Wave God says, I have Jefferson, Nico, Cortland, James Cook, Pollard, Garrett, Chubb, Mixon, Ramondre. Should I trade Cortland Sutton for Hampton? Absolutely. Without a doubt in my mind, it makes it, easily. I'd make the trade. Without a doubt. I have no hesitation. It is a play for the future, and it is a good one. All right, Nathan Gutierrez says, Andrew, I got offered Nick Chubb, Evans for Hubbard. He has McLaurin, Evans, Barkley, Kittle. Who can I offer to him for just Hubbard? What do you think? If you are going to trade away Hubbard, okay, here's my thought process. If I'm giving away Hubbard because of how thin running back is right now, I couldn't do a 1-for-1. And I'm certainly not interested in Chubb and Evans. I'm not interested in getting Nick Chubb on roster because then he just eats a roster spot and it becomes a problem. If I was in your position, Nathan, I try to make a move where I'm moving Chuba Hubbard for Evans, Kittle, and then you're adding a second piece to make it a 2-for-2. Thank you. Or maybe you add a second piece on top of Chuba Hubbard and you go for Barkley. Who knows? I don't know what you have on roster in terms of the full context there. Thanks, Nathan. Okay, so let's go ahead and let me see where the alternative questions that didn't have anything attached to it. Chubes McGee and Rag have, right? Okay, cool. So let's see where Rag's at. All right, Rag says in a 12-team full PPR flex league, we have Ramondre, Hunter, Golden, Harvey, Cup, Fannin, and Io Manor. Okay. Says, can I also pick up Dobbs? Currently starting Puka and more at my wide receiver, Henry and Kenneth Walker at running back, and Ferguson at tight end. Yeah, I mean, I think you're in a pretty good spot in terms of your bench play. In for the flex for this week, I'm specifically playing Ramondre Stevenson very confidently, in fact, because of that Pittsburgh Steelers run-stop defense that is non-existent. So Ramondre is your play this week. If you wanted to pick up Romeo Dobbs, you certainly could, but as of right now, I would keep as to what you have on roster right now. Thank you. All right, we continue on. Let's see here. Where's Choobs McGee? Choobs. Where are you, my man? Choobs says, in a 12-team full PPR, package Laporta and Quentin Johnston for Bowers? Yes, immediately. It's done. I would have already done it. I also have Ferguson on my bench. Yeah, that's a great trade. I'll take that, Choobs. Thanks, man. All right, let's continue on here really quickly in terms of the alternative questions. We had a question that came in from Eddie J. Eddie, thank you very much, sir. Says, hey, Andrew, I'm in a standard 12-man league. My quarterback is Nix and Daniel Dimes. Wide receivers are Chase, Terry, Igbuka, Golden, Franklin. Running backs are Kyron Hubbard and Travion Henderson, okay? Scadabu, Corum. Tight ends are Warren and Strange. I'm currently 1-1. Any advice and moves? Okay, so I think you're in a really good spot here because when I look at quarterback, I have no problems playing one of the two for the upcoming schedule. Warren is a fantastic tight end one. Strange, again, is a lottery ticket that in the event of the future of him getting more value, that's fantastic. As for when I look at the wide receiver conversation, again, I think our wide receiver 2 is a little bit thin right now based on the fact that, again, Terry McLaurin hasn't played up to his potential, but luckily Igbuka has filled in for that. Kyron, Hubbard, Henderson, Scadabu, I think, in due time, Henderson, Scadabu will be of greater value. If I'm making a theoretical move in a standard league where it's a 0 point per reception format here, I'm trying to go get wide receivers that have touchdown upside. Luckily, Terry McLaurin has been implicated for that in the past, but if you could, I'm trying to go get legitimately a Cortland Sutton instead of him, or I'm trying to go get a Mike Evans instead of him, an A.J. Brown instead of him, maybe pairing up a potential 2-for-2 kind of scheme here where you're sending a Terry and a Scadabu for another running back and an A.J. Brown or an Evans or something like that would be something that I'm increasingly more interested in as we approach the upcoming weeks here. Otherwise, yeah, I'm looking for touchdown upside, assuming that's what you meant by a standard league where it's 0 points per reception, Eddie. You can also clarify that in the live chat. Thank you. Jackson sends in a question. Says in a 10-team full PPR, we have 1 quarterback, 2 running backs, 2 wide receivers, 1 flex, 1 tight end. I have Lamar, AJ, CD, Brees, Kamara, Pitts, and Jordan Mason. Should I trade Lamar and AJ for May and Puka? No, I don't think you should. I think the value proposition there in which I think the amount of points you're going to lose from May in comparison to Lamar is significant enough to where I don't make that move. Thank you. Damien sends in a question. Okay, so really quickly, where are we at here? We're at 9:20 p.m. We've been here for an hour 5. I'm going to answer these last couple questions, then I got to go. I appreciate y'all coming through. Again, I'll be back in terms of answering questions Saturday afternoon at 1 p.m. PST and Sunday morning at, of course, 7 a.m. PST. I'm going to answer these last couple questions of Damien, Wave, Twisted, and Nathan, and then we're heading out. Appreciate it, guys. All right, Damien, let's see what you have here, my man. In terms of Mayfield, Chase Brown, Charbonnet, Neighbors, Flowers, Jay Johnson, as in Juwan, Shaheed, benches Harvey, Franklin, Hollywood Brown, Booty, Hawkinson, Rice, Godwin. Any moves to make trades, waiver tips? Okay, so here's the issue, okay? The issue number 1 is that your RB2 is Charbonnet. Charbonnet's hurt right now. That is not good. That means that you're going to have to look to the bench to get running back depth, to which you have Harvey, which is not good. So right now, I think you're probably in a position to where you should probably be looking, considering you have players such as Shaheed and Franklin and Booty and all these kind of receiving options on roster, Rice, etc. I think you need to pull, or like the cartoon where they break the glass, like only break this glass in emergency. Yeah, you need to break the Rashee Rice glass and you need to trade him, because I don't know if you're going to be able to sustain the upcoming onslaught of injuries that could take place and potential bye weeks without him. In the event in which you can, sure, maybe you have to pivot off of Flowers and go get a running back, but you're in need of a lot of help right now. And if you're going to get hit with an injury bug here in the not too distant future, we're going to be in trouble. So that's what I'm thinking. I think you have to move Rice and you have to try to go get running back depth in order to try to salvage this, Damien. As to who we're going for, I've mentioned before, I'd like Genties, I'd like Hamptons, I'd like Brees Halls. Is Rice the equivalent? I mean, shoot, if you can go get somebody more valuable, that would be better. Again, somebody earlier was like, hey, do I just ship off like a Chuba Hubbard? If you're going to get a Chuba Hubbard for that, I think that also is very much so comparable value. Wave God says, appreciate it. Thank you. Twisted Folk says, half PPR. Ridley on the wire. Would you leave him? My team consists of Caleb, May, JSN, Ladd, Keenan, Egbuka, Gibbs, Chase, Hampton, Brian Robinson, Warren, Fannin, Aubrey, Falcons. If I was in your position, I most likely end up picking him up and dropping one of my quarterbacks. I probably end up dropping Drake May and picking him up. In the event in which you're not comfortable doing so, I could understand it, to which then the next suggestion I would make is dropping Brian Robinson. But I think it needs to be done. If you don't want either of those to be off your team, I could understand it, to which you, again, keep what you have. Thank you. What are your thoughts on starting Browning this week? I have Jake Browning currently ranked as my number 19 quarterback. He's on the outside looking in, but still a really decent option for those of you who are missing out on Burrow. Nathan says, I have a quarterback, Mahomes Fields. Definitely will help. Okay, let's see what your... I looked at the question earlier in regards to what you had sent. You had said, hey, Andrew, I got offered Nick Chubb, Mike Evans for Chuba Hubbard, right? So, again, my suggestion was to try to go trade for Evans and Kittle, giving Hubbard and one other piece. Now, when I have the context of your team on here, with your team is Browning, Mason... Oh, that's a different roster. Never mind. Let me go back down here. Okay, so it says your team is Mahomes, Fields, Henry, Chuba Hubbard, Tootin. Okay, how do you accomplish this? You take... I wonder if they'll give you... No, they're not going to give you that. You would have to take Chuba Hubbard. They're not going to give it to you. You are in one of those situations where, like, you either are trading with an idiot and you can take advantage of them, or it's going to be tough. Because right now, if I was in your position, I would be trying to trade Chuba Hubbard alongside of... Yeah, but these other wide receivers don't have value. You have to wait, Nathan. I think my initial suggestion is for you to wait. Because of the issue that you have at wide receiver right now, and what I say by issue is that Keon Coleman, Travis Hunter, and Cedric Tillman don't have any value, and because you cannot actively move them, unless somebody wants Fields off of your team, you don't have enough trading power as it currently stands to be able to push for the trades that we want and that we desire, which gives us the position where we must wait until the other positions on your team or other players on your team increase in value, to which they are more of a sustainable trade partner kind of add-on to the mix. Thank you. All right, guys. I appreciate y'all coming through. I appreciate y'all supporting the channel, as you guys typically do on this wonderful Thursday. That's where I'm going to call it. I'll be back tomorrow with Hidden Gems, back Saturday afternoon at 1 p.m. PST, answering all questions fantasy football for a couple hours then, and of course back on Sunday morning. I appreciate y'all. Much love. Again, like I mentioned before, if you guys want my Sunday morning rankings, check out Betr. And if you want rankings and of course to ask me questions off the live stream, you can find me via Patreon. All that information down in the description. I appreciate y'all. We're going to go ahead and cue the best song in the world, the Double Helix. Until next time, I'll see you guys. Peace.